little bit of a personal tale. I happen to remember at a Conservative Party conference, Mr. Robertson, that I had a discussion with the honourable friend for Hastings and Rye about I was moving within the company, and I was a bit concerned that my salary would only go up slightly because of traditional rules, and I'd be on a considerably lower salary than fellow directors. And we had a chat about it, and to be blunt, she said, well, you've got to ask for it and be prepared to negotiate. And she was absolutely right, and I did. And I think my boss then was probably a bit surprised, but he recognised the fairness of the challenge, and as a consequence, I got a reasonable pay rise, and was on a level with other directors of a similar standing in the company. So there is something there that we should not expect life to be handed to us on a plate. Nobody does, but we need to ensure we grab the opportunities. In terms of the government, this is where we would like to see, I would like to see extending gender diversity reporting to senior management in the corporate code of governance and reporting. And on the Think That Report initiative, this is about capturing the data almost at every level and assessing what's going on. I personally think that is quite a bold initiative. I accept some of the larger companies probably have the IT systems already established to do that. But even in companies of a relatively small size, going 3 levels down from your board is probably not a difficult task to add to your measurement. And any good company will regularly be doing promotional reviews and talent reviews, so you would expect that information should be readily available, if not already. The reason to try and put it in the corporate reporting is to put a highlight and a spotlight on that particular issue, and to ensure that companies are thinking about this. And I think that I would hope the government would take that up, but I recognise that my honourable friend, the Minister, will not be able to make that commitment today. The other things that we wanted businesses to do was to be more formal about establishing mentoring and sponsorship programmes. It does happen in many companies, but it's often not, often tends to be more informal. We also want to see more formalising of career breaks and return to work schemes. It was very interesting to hear from one of the headhunters that when women leave to have maternity, some come back more quickly. We now have the flexible shared parenting leave, which is very welcome. But it was about keeping current, and keeping current wasn't just receiving a newsletter. It may have been about having some back-to-work days, or making sure that you were still invited to go to team buildings or whatever it was, but putting more choice in the hands of the women themselves. And we also learned in professional services, there was a recommendation that women may want to do courses to keep up to speed. And it so happens, just today, Mr. Speaker, over lunch, I was discussing with the member for Staffordshire Moorlands this debate. And she was saying about how when she'd been in practice, she was an accountant, but through her professional network, she learned about the Law Society, had a very successful way to try and get people in, to keep them in touch. And that's something I would recommend to other professional bodies to think about learning from the Law Society. It was news to me, and I will certainly be following up on it. Yes, of course.
I've been doing some consultation with women in my constituency about childcare. One of the things that a number of women have said to me is that while they're taking leave because their children are born, what they would like to be able to do is to participate in training at their workforce, at their workplace that they want to go back to, with associated childcare costs. Some of them have the right to access training, but the childcare costs aren't met. And it seems to me that that would be quite a simple thing to structure into workplaces or even legislation. And I wondered what she thought of that idea.
I think that's a very interesting idea. The Honourable Lady will probably realise I'm not into legislating for every outcome. I recognise that may be her approach. However, I think it is a good practice that could be established, and one we know that companies do recognise that they are missing out on talent when they are not providing those kinds of initiatives. And so, dare I say it, the more forward-thinking businesses, if they haven't heard this idea, I'm sure it will ring out from this chamber today. And I'm sure it will be mentioned to Mars when she next visits it, as I think that'd be a very good idea. We did look at childcare policy, and to be very honest, I don't have children, so I don't pretend to have quite the same experience that others have. But I did employ, when I was working, I did manage a team at one stage of 24 people. And I think I'm right in saying approximately 16 of those were women working part-time and balancing that. And I often found that people who work part-time were the most diligent employees, partly because they value the fact that they had a good paid, reasonably well-paid job that was part-time, but also were very organised in how they had their lives. So I won't pretend that we came to a unanimous view, but what we were encouraging the government to do was to bring forward the tax-free childcare policy. I recognise that we have the budget on the 19th of March. I'd be astonished, Mr Robertson, if it made an early entry, but nevertheless, we can say with confidence that next year we will have this new policy in, and I think that is very welcome indeed. In terms of other aspects of the report, we wanted to extend Lord Davis's work to include public sector and professional services. And I really want to thank my noble friend, Viscount Younger. We were fortunate, my honourable friend, the member for Brentford and Alsworth, we were both fortunate to go and present to the Professional Business Services Council last week with some recommendations from our report. And I'm conscious that he is very keen to do something about this with the professional services. I think this is now in the open, this data is public, widely known publicly, but if you are entering as a lawyer into the legal profession, at the moment I think more young women are entering than young men, but at this moment today you're 9 times more likely to become a partner if you are a man than if you are a woman. I'm sure that will change naturally anyway, because I wouldn't expect people who joined a law firm in the last few years to be a partner by now. It certainly takes time, but I think I would like to raise the consciousness of the professional services that something needs to be done about that. And for accountancy firms, it's about 3 times more likely for a man to become a partner at the moment than it is for a woman. So there is work to be done there. The other aspect of Lord Davis has focused significantly on non-execs, and I know that the government is looking to see what it can do to do more on the executive side, recognising that although I'm confident that we will reach the 25% of board directors by next year, that we need to continue the percentage of executive. The one other key aspect that we asked the government to focus on was improving careers advice for girls, particularly in STEM. And science, technology, engineering and mathematics. I was very pleased to see that 40% of STEM ambassadors are women. I noticed my right honourable friend's comments about from Meriden about maths being key and enabling for an engineering. Now, interestingly enough, I've had quite a debate with the right honourable member for Havant on this particular matter. I'm astonished that people can get onto engineering degrees without physics A-levels. But I recognise, actually, it was an enlightening discussion, that quite a lot of young women tend to take, if they're doing triple sciences, biology, chemistry and maths, and not focusing on physics. Now, personally, just as we saw with the Chancellor of Germany last week, Angela Merkel, with her PhD in physics, a very experienced politician and obviously a clever lady doing sciences, the hard sciences, as Mr. Speaker pointed out. I think I recognise the issue, and I do believe that people who are successful at achieving A's in maths, chemistry and biology are probably just as capable as achieving physics. So if there is a way that we can do a catch-up course and get more women into engineering who may not have been successful at getting into the degree of their choice, then I think that's a welcome step, and I've encouraged, after my initial reservations, the Right Honourable Member for Havant to progress those kinds of schemes. I give way.
The Honourable Lady might find it interesting to know that for a lot of university degrees, maths and further maths is required for an engineering degree. And it's that combination that's putting quite a lot of aspirant engineers off who may well have physics, but maybe not the double maths A-level. And I think that's an important point for the record.
Dr. Coffey.
I thank my friend for making that point. I was not aware of that. I could spend another 20 minutes talking about what's happening